Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Nurture Notes, where today we are diving into Luke 20. If you're watching Nurture Notes regularly but you're not subscribed, please do make sure you hit the subscribe button. It takes 2 seconds for you but means so much to creators like me, more than you know, and so subscribing really does help. And so thank you to those of you who are subscribed. Also, before I dive in, if you're new here, hi, my name is Naomi Aidoo. I'm a coach, an author, a Bible teacher, and a YouVersion partner. And every week on Monday, I share a nurture note where we dive into an area of scripture, a passage of scripture. At the moment, we're going through the Gospel of Luke. In the new year, that will change. And today we're in Luke chapter 20. You can catch up on all of the previous chapters of Luke by going back through this channel. I also want to let you know that for those of you that aren't new here, those of you that are interested in diving a bit deeper, particularly as we move into the Advent season, my Advent offering, The Arrival, which is going to feature a bit of coaching, a bit of teaching, a bit of reflection, a bit of guided journaling, and everything in between, all with some live sessions, is going to be dropping. The information is going to be dropping to my email list, which you can subscribe to if you are just here watching on YouTube but not yet on my email list, by going to the description at 9 p.m. this evening. So The Arrival, my Advent reflection, is going to be really good, and the full information is going to be dropping to those who have expressed an interest on my email list tonight at 9 p.m. UK, which is 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and 8 a.m. for those that are Australia. So you'll be in tomorrow already. So if you're interested in learning more, and for some of the options there's like limited spots, then do be sure to drop your name on the expression of interest form, because you'll be receiving it first and then it will go out to everyone else on my email list tomorrow. So let's dive into Luke chapter 20. The question that I got when going through this chapter a number of times in preparation for this nurture note was, will we be caught up with Jesus or instead try to catch him out? Now, the reason I say this is because throughout the chapter, whether it's like the Pharisees, the Sadducees, or the elders, there are people trying to catch Jesus out as he's teaching in the temple. They're questioning his authority. They're questioning what the right or wrong thing to do. They're questioning resurrection. And we're going to go through some of those instances in a moment. But I just think that question, will we be caught up with Jesus or instead try to catch him out, is kind of how I want to frame this nurture note. And I'll share a little bit more in a moment. So if you're kind of thinking, what does it mean to be caught up with Jesus or caught up in Jesus, then stay tuned. 1 to 8 of chapter 20 is the chief priests and the teachers of the law, together with the elders, basically questioning Jesus' authority. They say in verse 2, "Tell us, by what authority are you doing these things?" They said, "Who gave you this authority?" They're used to being the big dogs. They're used to being the guys that do the teaching and all of this stuff. And then here's Jesus, who is, by all intents and purposes, irreligious. He hangs out with sinners and tax collectors and all of the people that they don't want anything to do with because they are far too high and mighty. And they're kind of like, this guy draws in crowds, he has people following him, and yet he's not like us. So who's given him this authority? Why is this happening? That's one of the questions. If you keep going down and you go down to verse 19, starting at verse 19, the teachers of the law and the chief priests looked for a way to arrest him immediately, because they knew that they'd spoken this parable, the parable that he just taught, the parable of the tenants, to basically out them. And what they do instead is they send spies and they try to catch him out by essentially asking whether or not they should pay taxes. And Jesus has always got an answer. He's always got an answer for them. He's always ready to come back to them because they're always trying to be sneaky with their catching out. And Jesus is just not having it. We then go down to 45 and it says, while all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the places of honor at banquets. They devour the widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely. So after that, and before that, there is actually another accusation starting at verse 27, where the Sadducees, who don't believe in the resurrection, actually come to Jesus and say, well, they make up this ridiculous situation. They make up this crazy scenario whereby there's a woman that's been married to 7 brothers, and so after the resurrection, whose wife will she be? And just make it seem absurd to believe in the resurrection, essentially. And Jesus has always got an answer. And so what I just read just before that, from verse 45, when Jesus is basically saying, mind out for these guys. Like, they are going to be punished more severely, even though they might seem high and mighty, and it might seem as though actually they've got everything together and, they're teaching you to do X, Y, and Z. Don't fall for it. Don't fall in line with it if it's not something that's in line with who I say that I am, is what Jesus is saying. With these questions, that line of questioning from the Pharisees, from the Sadducees, from the elders, the teachers of the law, there's no deep desire to know God and to know his way. Instead, there's this deep need to impose their own will. And we can tut and we can roll our eyes at that notion. The idea of like, oh, well, this is God we're talking about. And I've definitely, been guilty of that sense of being like, what are they doing? But actually, how often do we, at points, because of something that we so badly want or feel that we need, do we kind of just try and get Jesus on side to our will, to our desires, and kind of just get him to give that stamp of approval, when actually it's not something that he's necessarily called or suggested. It's just something that we're like saying, please just stamp this and approve this for me. And that's where I think that question that I shared with you at the beginning, will we be caught up with Jesus or instead try to catch him out, comes back into play. Because the Cambridge Dictionary definition of being caught up in something is to be so involved in an activity that you don't notice other things. We might be thinking to ourselves, well, not noticing other things, being so caught up in that particular way seems a bit strange. But actually, we know from when we look back in Luke chapter 9 that there's this call to deny ourselves, and not to deny ourselves to humans where, we just essentially have no dignity, no self-respect, no boundaries and nothing else, and we're just letting people walk all over us. But when it comes to surrendering ourselves to the Lord, it's clear his will and his way is better. And sometimes that can be hard, right? It can be really difficult. But when we're caught up in him, caught up in his word and in worship of him, we can't but help to recognize and notice the goodness of God, his love and his mercy, his grace, his rejoicing over us with loud singing, all of those things. And in doing so, it becomes easier to surrender. And so a question I'd like to kind of close with is, what are we afraid to let go of that we might instead give to Jesus in surrender? What are we afraid to let go of that we instead might give to Jesus in surrender? We might be afraid to let go of things like anxiety, because perhaps you feel like it preserves or protects you. Moaning, complaining, these sorts of things, we might feel like, actually, if I let go of those things, then I don't have anything, because these are the things that are kind of sustaining me, because I almost feel validated in my moaning about how hard a particular thing is. But actually, what if, in recognizing how good God is, we're able to let go of that in light of Jesus and give it to him? And I wonder what he might do with that act of surrender. And so, will we be caught up with Jesus, or will we instead just try to catch him out, bring him on side to our will and our ways, instead of trusting that his way is what is best? So I hope that has served you today. I hope it's given you some real food for thought. Again, don't forget to join the expression of interest form for the arrival, details of which will be dropping tonight if you're watching live, or at the time of this dropping on Monday the 10th of November at 9 p.m. UK, 4 p.m. East and 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. AEDT. I am really looking forward to sharing that with you. It's going to be a really exciting devotional reflective journey which you don't want to miss. If you're watching this after Monday the 10th and after that time that I've shared, then the details will just be on my website at timeandpace.com, so you'll be able to find them and just jump in. At any point between now and the end of Advent you can jump in, because you can catch the replays as well. So I hope that has served you. I hope that you are excited to surrender to Jesus, in knowing that actually this isn't about him, you know, trying to be sneaky or catch us out. It's about him knowing what's best, him knowing us best, and us just acting in accordance with that. Keep going, keep growing.